And I do have the live transcript or the subtitles enabled, and you can go to the bottom of your screen, the CC button, and you can choose to show or hide those depending on your preference. We'll also invite you to use the chat to engage. We'll invite some participation a little bit later in the presentation. So if you would like to come off mute and or enable your video, we would love to hear from you. All right, with that, I will hand it over to Amy to get us started.
Thanks, Erin.
And please chat me if you need any tech support. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to pull up some slides here. Hope you are doing well. I forgot to look up the weather in Colorado today. Is it snowing? So it takes me a second, just one moment. All right, is everybody able to see this? Okay, wonderful. So again, I'm Amy Spetnagel. Glad you're all here. I'm grateful for all the work that you all do with Colorado Cancer Screening Program. I've always appreciated that program. I used to live in Colorado, and I moved to Arizona for warmer temperatures in the fall. So it sounds like I missed an epic winter in Colorado. All right.
It's snowing in Fairplay, according to Julie.
Okay, good. I didn't check the chat yet.
Snowing somewhere.
Well, I'm not surprised. That's what springtime does. When it was snow, I mean, I'm from Colorado for my whole life, but when it was snowing in May and we had to shovel last May, that's when I decided I was finished. So anyway, we're just glad you're all here, and we're going to have some fun. I feel like this is, according to Erin, it sounds like you all needed some conversations around maybe trying to lighten the load a little bit. I know you've all been through a lot the past couple of years, and so we wanted to recognize that and work on some. Yes, there's some content around MI, and we'll also just do some fun activities. So in chat, please share a myth you have heard about COVID on social media, or maybe you heard it from a friend or your family or from a client. So share something in chat that you have heard, and maybe Patty, if I miss any of these, you could help me out here.
Definitely.
Okay. Not snowing in Pueblo. I love Pueblo. Good.
Okay,
good.
it started. All right, that the vaccine alters the DNA. It's a hoax. It isn't real, not harmful, magnetic. It'll make young women sterile. That if they're vaccinated, they cannot get the virus.
Okay, thank you.
Mind control chips.
Haven't heard that one for a minute.
Oh, not telling the truth about how many people have passed due to taking the vaccine. Causes cancer. Oh, I don't think I've heard that one. Interesting.
Wow. All right, well, we'll check again. Thank you, everyone. So pretty interesting, right? That maybe some of those you've all heard, or maybe some of them were new. I've heard that too. I even had, and if we could go with the Vegas rule of what is said on our Zoom call here, that it's confidential. But I have someone who I adore very, very much, who was worried about my daughters getting the vaccine because of infertility. So we've heard a lot of misinformation, right? And disinformation. So let's look at our agenda. And so this is what we're going to cover today. We have an hour and a half. We'll see if we take the whole time, but we will do a quick review of motivational interviewing skills and how we can use MI to help us be more curious and help us affirm who we're working with or validate. So just we do know that when we're having tough conversations, MI can be a great tool. So we'll review some of that. And then Erin has this fantastic video that we will watch, maybe 13 to 15 minutes of It's a really great video around getting the vaccination. So we'll do that. And then we'll do a group practice. So don't fear the breakout room. Today we thought we'd stay together as a group, and we'll just kind of do a group practice. So I want it to be very comfortable for everyone, and we'll just see, kind of explore some mini scenarios. And then Patty's going to talk to you about exploring misinformation and disinformation, and some techniques to combat the misinformation, and how to spot it and what to do with it. So looking at the different dispositions of how people feel about the vaccine, we have, so in the middle is disposition, and then our favorite clients are the people who are just no problem, they're going to accept it, they're fine with it, they don't really have any questions, they're just moving forward getting the vaccine or already have. And then we might have some people that we work with who they're accepting it, but maybe they have some hesitancy or a few questions. And so those kind of clients, normally we can just answer their questions or point them in the right direction, or maybe set up a follow-up call. But usually that's not too big of a stumbling block, right? They're pretty open to it. They just want to ask you a few more questions. And then we have folks who are really quite hesitant. You might think of them as being ambivalent. They're sitting on the fence. They're just not sure, or they're like, I'm going to wait a little bit longer, or they might be able to justify easily why they're going to wait or why they're not quite there yet. And then we have people who might be refusing altogether, right? They're not there. Okay, they don't want to do it. So we're really going to most likely make the most traction between hesitant and refusing folks by working with the people who are hesitant, right? That said, I believe you can still make some progress with people who are refusing it by having a very skilled MI conversation, by staying curious, by asking them questions and just trying to understand and respect where they are coming from. So again, here's just a kind of a different way of looking at it. Yes, I'm ready, I'm accepting. We're just going to connect that person to the vaccine. Questioning, I just got a few questions, and then we can help them answer those questions. Hesitant, not really sure. This might take more than 1 or 3 or 5 MI sessions. So we do need to slow down when we're having these conversations, regardless of where they're at, but I would say especially with folks who are hesitant, we just need to slow down and try to understand where they are at. A lot of things come up for people regarding the vaccine. So it could be cultural issues, religion, safety concerns. People think it was developed too quickly, or now people are questioning, why would we have to keep getting boosters this often? So just a lot comes up. So I think slowing down and really listening to people and reflecting what they say will be really helpful for us. And a few reminders that I like to bring up is some ways that we can continue to have a positive session when we're working with our clients or our patients is we really need to keep that MI spirit in the forefront of the conversation, or keep it in the forefront of what you're saying and what you're feeling and thinking. That there's going to be clients that we're not able to reach, right? Some people who are refusing the vaccine, we're probably not going to convince them, especially in one session. And when you do have tough questions from a client, it's completely fine and appropriate to say, I don't have all the answers. Here's a link to a CDC website, or I wonder if I could find some other information for you regarding this and get back to you. But just being okay with, saying, I did not get a degree in whatever it is, microbiology or anything related. So it's okay to not have all the answers. And we want to, as I said before, we want to stay curious, and we don't have to convince them. That's not necessarily what MI is about. They might need some time to work through their ambivalence, and our role as an MI person, leader, is to kind of sit with them, talk with them, kind of sit with their ambivalence and ask them some questions that will create them, that might make them ponder or reflect, might make them just kind of go away thinking and thoughtful. And if we can get that accomplished, that's a big win. So we're going to look at some MI basics. So again, I believe in speaking with Erin and Patty that a lot of this is a review for you. If it's new to you, welcome to MI. You're not going to learn it in one session. I wish we could. So how are ORs, which is the acronym for open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries, how are those used for the COVID to have conversations around vaccines? And I'd say that a couple of things that come to mind, obviously we're going to use these tools, but staying curious and showing, whether it's words or how you are sitting with the person or your tone of voice, but showing that autonomy, really, that it's up to them. We're not here to judge them. We want to listen to them. We want to validate them. And we want to really just support them and be just a positive listener to them. Some other MI tools that I would imagine are exploring once in a while, at least with these MI conversations, and that we strongly recommend, are using what we call EPE. And that's an acronym for elicit, provide, elicit. So that's when we ask permission, just check in with somebody and say, well, I was wondering what you know about the COVID vaccines, or what have you heard? And going through that. Would it be okay if I provided you with some information? And then you would go ahead and provide that information. And this is not where you're going to do a data dump. You're just going to provide maybe one or two facts about the vaccine or about whatever topic you're discussing at the moment. And then you can check back in with them. What do you think of that information? Or how does that sit with you? So it's a very respectful way to provide some factual information without getting in an argument or and remember, sometimes people might come in and they have several reasons for not getting vaccinated. So we're not going to be able to, in that one session, dispel every myth, right? Maybe just choose one or two things, and maybe even if it's just one thing that you could use EPE with, where you're eliciting what they know about a certain part of the topic, providing a brief piece of information, and then checking back with them what they thought about that. And then creating a plan to follow up. So we all know that it's pretty unlikely when people are ambivalent about something that we're going to be able to influence them one way or another or towards making the change with just one session. It's uncommon. It's not unheard of, but it's not normal. So we need to just make sure that we set up some time to follow up with them and check back in. I'm pretty sure you all know, but I'll highlight real quick. So I know, as far as ORs, open-ended questions, they help a person dig, or you're digging deeper. It helps the person feel more comfortable when they talk to you. It's a question that can't be answered with a yes or a no. You can mix in a few questions that are closed questions that are yes or a no, but an open-ended question is just going to allow for a more rich conversation. Affirming people is noticing their strengths, affirming their character. So it's not so much a compliment. It's not saying to someone, oh, I really like your bracelet. It's affirming some character, oh boy, it really sounds like you've done your research on this. That can be an affirmation. The person has read about it. A simple affirmation is simply just thanking them for calling, for having a conversation with you. A reflection, of course, is when we're reflecting back what the person is saying. This helps validate the conversation. We're showing them that we're listening, and you can use their exact words if that is easier for you. The person that we're working with might say something like, I just don't know what to think about vaccines. And you can just reflect it back. You don't know what to think about vaccines. So I used almost the exact same words there. And then just summarizing the conversation. And this can be very brief. It could be, you might say something like, well, today we talked about some of the reasons that you're hesitant about getting the vaccine. We talked about some reasons for the positive for getting the vaccine. And I told you I'm going to follow up with you. I'm going to find you some more information about the Omni variant, or whatever it is. But it can be just a 45-second, less than a minute summary, okay, depending on the length of your conversation. So when we are listening and working with clients, it's important to remember the acronym DARN CAT. And so we have this cute little kitty here. But when we are listening and having a conversation, we really want to listen for these things. This is change talk. So when someone expresses any of these on this list, maybe the ability to change or the need to make a change, the commitment, that they're ready, and this might be a little bit less common when the activating, the ready and willing, that's when the MI starts to get really fun, right? Is when someone is really getting close to making a change. Or maybe they're already taking steps towards the change, but just listening for words that insinuate or imply desire, ability, reasons for changing. Maybe someone says, I think I should get the vaccine because I need to show my family that it's the right thing to do. I need to be a good role model for my younger brother. And so just listening for these things and drawing them out, and then, because this is change talk and we always want to reflect the change talk. I'm sure many of you know who Kathy Garrett is, and she helped us come up with so much of what we present even today. So listening for change talk and reflecting the change talk. So we want to, when someone talks about reasons to stay the same, we call that sustained talk. We don't want to pay a lot of attention to that. We're not going to reflect the sustained talk. We're going to reflect the positive, what we call the flowers in the garden. So let me pause for a moment, and I'm going to look at the chat, and I would like you all to just, if you have a question, you can come off mute and ask it. I saw some real winners here in the chat. It will kill you, it causes cancer, and it's used as a way to control people. We all know that social media wins that race. Okay, so again, just always feel free to chime in with questions or comments. So we always want to be listening for change talk and highlighting the change talk by reflecting it. So something like someone might say, I know I can get the vaccine. You could just reflect that. You can get the vaccine. Okay, it can be very, very simple, but those reflections need to be frequent. Very, very frequent. Helps the person hear what they're saying. So in a moment here, we're going to look at a video. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. And this is Dr. Pran or Dr. Pran, I'm sorry. And he's working with, in my memory, her name is Dottie, I believe. We'll find out here in a second. But I also want to thank Dr. Pran, who has been super generous to let us use this video. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to take a few minutes to just absorb the video, watch it, and let's look for some MI skills in action here. It's such a great video because there's there's a little bit of background you'll catch on. And one thing I think it's important to call out before we even start the video is we all know that there has been a very valid reason for people to mistrust the medical system, right? We have many historic events that have happened that the white people have really mistreated people of color, and the medical mistrust that exists today. And I think it's very important to recognize that and to validate that if that is someone's reason for not getting the vaccine. And really, you can just explore that with people. So that is in this video a little bit, and I think it's beautiful to watch and just sort of absorb. So as you're watching the video, if you would maybe just jot down any MI skills that you see and maybe some ideas here that are some good takeaways for you. Maybe looking at body language and were there any moments of silence, right? Or discomfort, because those are all parts of MI, like being okay to sit with silence for a moment. So just looking for some of those MI strategies, and definitely write down anything that you'd like to take and use in your work. And so before I move on, any questions before we watch this video? All right, well, in a moment, Erin will show the video. And again, thank you all for being here, and we'll debrief.
We are going to start just a couple minutes in when Dr. Prawn really starts to explore the vaccine hesitancy with his client.
Want to do whatever she needs to do to make sure that she's protected against COVID. To be really honest with you, Dr. Burns, I'm just really unsure. It just feels new. It's, I don't know. I've done a little bit of research, and I don't know. To be honest, I'm just really not trusting. I don't know how else to do it. You know what I mean? I'm just really not trusting. You can barely get me in for the flu shot. So COVID-19.
I don't think I got you in this time, if I remember correctly.
You didn't.
That's right. No, it's true. Okay. I didn't know that that you had that perspective. I have a few minutes. Is it okay if we talk a little bit more about the COVID vaccine and just kind of want to explore your perspective about it?
Okay.
Yeah, you were mentioning that you're not sure about it, and you also mentioned that you're not trusting. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, since they've been talking about this vaccine, like I get it. I see how COVID has definitely the impact of COVID on the entire population, and then I also, like I said earlier, my aunt passed from it, and I know other folks from the community. And while I want to be healthy, right, and I want to guard myself against contracting COVID-19, the vaccine, it just feels so new. Even with the research that I've done, I don't know. I'm just really not trusting. Like, I mean, I think it's almost the same way that I feel about the flu shot. I'm one of those. It's like, well, if everybody else is vaccinated, then I should be okay. What's the impact? Like, what is the long-term impact of this vaccine? Like, I don't think we have enough information yet. That's where I am.
You're feeling some distrust about the information that's out there about the vaccine. It's new. There's a lot of unknowns that we in medicine don't have answers for.
Yes.
And so that's why you're hesitant.
And the medical profession hasn't really been nice to people who look like me.
It's true.
To be honest with you.
When
I think about, while they're, doctors have made great strides in medicine, a lot of it was on the bodies of Black and brown people. So I don't know. I'm just not trusting.
Yeah. I wonder if you've been on the personal end of discrimination and bias in medicine.
Um, hmm. I mean, I felt like I have.
Yeah.
I felt like I have.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to prove, right? Because you don't know if you don't know for sure, but I know what
Yeah.
it felt like. I know what
Yeah.
it felt like. So I felt that. I felt like oftentimes that my voice is not that that the doctors can be dismissive. Like when I'm saying that like this is an issue, it's like you get the look like, is it really the issue? You know what I mean? Like so sometimes I feel
Mm-hmm.
dismissed, and I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's because I'm black or a woman or both.
Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you felt like you were not heard
Yeah,
and you weren't respected.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And because I'm pretty knowledgeable about, well, I know about me. I may not know everything there is to know about medicine, but I know me because I live in this body. And when I'm feeling dismissed, or that the practitioners are being dismissive, I take my business elsewhere.
And your relationship with healthcare institutions and other providers has been such that they don't hear you. They don't hear you out. They don't respect you. They don't
Right,
treat you
right,
as an equal.
right.
And then just historically that there's been this legacy of you know medical progress really kind of dependent upon the non-consensual use of Black and brown bodies.
Yes.
You know, uh, and so I totally hear you when you're talking about
Yeah.
distrusting,
Yeah.
especially these latest developments.
And and
So,
and I don't
all
mean to
right, go
cut
ahead.
you off, but like, how do I know this won't happen now? Right? Like, so I get the
Mm,
vaccine, right? And I'm experiencing whatever side effects that I experience that may
mm,
not line up with your research. Like, how do I know I won't be dismissed then?
mm.
Right? Like, how do I know you're not like, and not when I say you, I'm not talking about you personally, but I know that you represent,
I represent the field.
the
Yeah.
field, right? So, like, then how do I know that you're not like trying to figure out how this works in Black and brown bodies? Like, I don't know
Mm,
that, right? I don't know that. So I have a lot more questions than I do answers. And
yeah.
so that's why I'm a little bit ambivalent about receiving the vaccine. Now, for my mom, on the other hand,
Hmm.
I feel like because she is maybe in a high risk category, I want to do what I can do to make sure that she's around and healthy,
Mm,
right?
mm,
But when
mm,
it comes to me, I know it sounds a little weird, but I'm not there. I'm not there.
mm, mm. Gotcha. It sounds like with your mom, you're at this point where her level of risk is high enough that it kind of it's kind of wins over whatever concerns you might have. Whereas
Correct.
with you, it's kind of like it's kind of below that
Yeah.
threshold.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
With
yeah.
all of the conditions that I have, right? Because
Right,
you're upping my medication as it relates to my high blood pressure and my diabetes, and I get
right,
that.
right.
I get that that puts me in a risk category. Like, I'm
Yeah,
very well aware of that.
yeah, yeah,
So Dr. Burns, that's where I am.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and not really sure what to do to move from this place.
Yeah.
um, now,
Let me ask you, what would kind of bridge that gap between your threshold of getting the vaccine and your feelings that it might be beneficial to you?
I think time.
Time.
Time. And what I mean by that is seeing how it plays out with the people who have already received the vaccine.
Mm,
And again, I
mm,
know it sounds harsh, right? Like, let me
yeah,
see how it works in you first before I get it. Um,
yeah.
so I think time, maybe more information or up to date information
Okay.
of, what's happening.
Yeah.
And it
So
doesn't,
it sounds like it's not just time, it's like time plus information, experience,
yes,
kind of getting, more of that would be helpful for you
yes.
in making the decision to get the vaccine.
Mhm.
Let me ask you, why are you, as long as your mother's okay with it, Why are you feeling that it would be something that would be really important for your mother to get?
Again, she's older. She's 75, right? And she has conditions that make her more susceptible to contracting COVID, right? So,
Mm,
like it, whether it's or she may not be able to handle it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
In a way that someone who may be a little healthier can handle. So I think these are some
gotcha.
of the things that I'm like, all right, since that's her situation, I'd rather for her to be okay and
Mm,
be good. And I feel like
mm,
I maybe a little bit like youth is on my side. I may be incorrect in that information.
mm, mm,
Um, but yeah. So I know it seems weird, right? Because I'm advocating or I'm okay with her getting it, but
mm.
I'm just I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm really not, I'm okay. I'm not okay with her getting it, but I don't see any other alternatives to keep her healthy.
Mm, gotcha. Gotcha.
And I don't know
Yeah.
how that's different from me,
Yeah. Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people are in a place of, of thinking that's paradoxical. And I mean, I
Mhm,
think that can be part of just being human,
mhm,
So it
mhm.
sounds like the risks are so high for your mom and they could be so devastating, especially given what happened, to your
Yes.
aunt, that
Mhm,
you would really want her to get the vaccine.
correct.
And then age has something to do with it, right? So that, for you, you feel like youth is on your side as well
Right.
as some other things. What
Mhm.
other risk factors do you know of that you're aware of?
I think health, right? Like if you have conditions, like probably the conditions that I have is one, right?
Mm, mm,
um, the hypertension, and the diabetes, right?
mm.
Is definitely a risk factor.
Yeah, yeah. Would it be okay if I shared a little information about the risk
Please,
factors? If
yes,
that's okay?
yes.
I'm just saying from my experience,
Okay.
the vast majority of those patients had diabetes, and they were of any age. I mean, as young as in their 30s,
Mhm,
with diabetes. There's something about diabetes,
mhm,
And the
mhm,
thing is it's also been shown in studies that diabetes is a very potent risk factor,
mhm,
regardless of age. Type
mhm,
2 diabetes.
mhm.
So I'm, we're in the dark. We'll admit to you in terms of why, but um, it's a big risk factor for being hospitalized and dying.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
I hear you. Uh, I'm still processing. Um,
Yeah, of course.
I guess I'm wondering, like, just in your experience, right? In your professional experience, when you're talking about like diabetes, was it controlled or was it not?
Yeah,
Right. So these are some of the questions that I have. Like, so if
yeah,
I'm controlled, right?
yeah.
Does that still, I mean, I'm sure I'm at risk anyway because of the simple fact that I have diabetes. But if it's controlled, does it lessen? Right. Like I'm just trying
Mm,
to
mm.
figure it all out.
Yeah, that's a good question. So you're right. Having better control of your blood sugars in diabetics is better than for you for COVID than in diabetics who have poor control of their blood sugar. So that's true. The overall risk for diabetics, even if they have really good control, is still higher than that of um, people who don't have diabetes. What do you
If
think
we can
about
just
that?
look, if we can just heal the diabetes,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you is what I can say. It doesn't necessarily move me up
Yeah.
of um, shortening the gap. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear you. Let me just I guess let me just sit with that
All right. All
information
right.
and just kind of figure out where I am with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
I mean, uh, it's totally up to you what you want to do,
Mhm,
and I'm not going to judge you. It's your body. It's up to
mhm,
you.
mhm.
So, but I really appreciate that we got a chance to talk about it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it sounds like you had some major distrust of the healthcare system, rightfully so,
Mhm,
and you have very specific legitimate questions
mhm,
about the vaccine. I concur with some of those. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, there are things that we just don't know.
Mhm.
At the same time, it sounds like you're beginning to think about it like, you know, you want to kind of sit with what we just talked about in terms of diabetes and the risk. So yeah, no, I think that sounds great. Did I get everything right?
Yeah. Yeah. You did. I just need to sit with what it is that you gave me,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
figure out, like where I am with it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly. All
So,
right.
yeah, Dr. Burns, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having this conversation with me. I'm
Of
glad
course.
we kind of talked more about this.
Yeah,
It's
me
important
too.
stuff.
Thank you, Erin. All right, so do some thinking while I pull up my slides. I'm very interested in hearing what you think of it. All right. So let's just debrief real quick. What were some good examples of MI? And again, whatever you're comfortable with, it could chat, or you are more than welcome to just come off mute if that's faster, easier, if you'd rather do that. So what were some good examples of MI here? Reflections. Thank you, Sherry. Krista says he did well just repeating her words back to her. Yes, such a simple skill. Why is it so hard? A lot of reflections. Good, Victoria. Active listening with his I agree. I like that. Also a little change talk. What else did we see in here? How did he continue to move the conversation forward once in a while? What can anybody think of a phrase that he said or questions he asked that pushed it forward some? Yes, summer. That's yeah, Jason. That summary at the end. I really like that too. He summarized and left her pensive. I thought, left her thinking. Is she convinced? No, she's not yet. But
May I add?
Yeah, please.
Oh, well, Victoria just said why she thought it was okay for her mother and not herself. I thought that was a powerful question, and Victoria added that. But one thing I really liked is when he said, what would it take? What do you need in order for you to move forward? And that's where I thought the woman gave great information about, needed to wait longer, needed to see how it was affecting people. I think that was one of my favorite questions.
Yeah, I agree, because sometimes you are, as an MI provider, I don't know if I want to use the word stuck, but you're at a pause. And at least when I'm using MI, sometimes I'm like, okay, what's next? And so asking, what would it take? Like, we've talked about a lot of things so far. Tell me, what do you think it would take to get you to get the vaccine? Or, whatever change you're talking about. Another thing that another trainer that perhaps Katie Langland, I just have learned so much from her. One thing she always says is, I wonder if you've been on the personal end of discrimination and bias. And I thought that was awesome. He pulled that up, he called it out, recognized it, and just let her explore there, because that is, and to me, a big example of the MI spirit, the autonomy, the trust, the opportunity, the holding space for her to express that, and how she couldn't prove it, but she kind of just felt like it. She felt dismissed often by providers. Brandy says the EPE, the illicit provide illicit. Yeah, he asked permission to provide some information. Very good. And you don't have to go, as you know, we're not Dr. Fran. We don't have to go that deep. And probably my guess is you don't have time most of the time. But just maybe channeling some of the things that you saw in this video that resonated with you. And just those reflections, I think were so good. And then he did that mini summary where he said time plus information plus experience. I thought that was nicely put there. And one idea I have to share with you is to say, after people have shared, saying something like, you know, it could be as simple as thank you for sharing. It could be, you could also say, I hear you. And how can we work together so that you feel you can trust me more? And yeah, Julie, he wasn't in a hurry, and boy, that's good to attach onto that vibe, right? To try to, in our head, we might be thinking of other things that we have to do or the next client we have to see. But he really seemed to be calm, and I think that allowed her to open up. Thank you for bringing that up. Good. Let me just see if there's anything else in my notes. Yeah, and how he brought up that overall the risk for her is just still higher because of diabetes. And then again, because he had developed the trust early on, he did such a nice job bringing in, he pushed her to see the paradox. I mean, he was very gentle all along, but then he did bring up the discrepancy. It's okay for your mom to get the vaccine, but not for you. And then like Patty said, similarly to the other thing, he says, what would bridge you? And he wasn't like humiliating, like derogatory about bringing up that discrepancy, but just, and that to me is really great MI skills when you can gently bring that up. So, and one of my favorite phrases to use there is, so on the one hand, you feel blah, blah, blah. And on the other hand, you know, your substance use is not always getting in the way of everything else you have to do. But yet it's, you know, it sounds like every morning you're waking up hungover, or, you know, so I'm just giving you a random example, but I like that on the one hand, this, and on the other hand, this. That's a nice way to point out discrepancy. Okay, so you could do it using verbiage around the vaccine. What did you notice about Africa? Go ahead.
Oh, in the chat, I just wanted to say that Brandy pointed out the use of illicit provide illicit, and then Victoria added kind of, you know, some content, letting her know that she was at risk because of her diabetes by using that EPE.
Thank you, Erin. And that, you know, remember if you took level 1 patient navigation, when we watched the effective provider and the ineffective MI provider, and when she's belittling the mom about smoking. So he did such a graceful job here about letting her know that, yeah, I mean, yeah, the risk is still there for diabetes, but he didn't make her feel crummy about having diabetes.
And then Amy, I think he did nice autonomy support at the end, especially when he gave her the information about diabetes, and she didn't want to like totally accept it. She wanted to wait, like simmer, let it simmer. And he said, hey, it's up to you. You know, this is your body, and it's your, you know, it's your choice. And so I thought he did a nice job at reinforcing autonomy support when she was kind of like, you know, facing new information and thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Patty. And what those words are just so, I don't know if calming is the right word, but hey, it's up to you. I mean, it's freedom, right? Like you're giving that person the ability to choose, and you're saying that I'm not going to judge you. It's your body and your decision. I'm just here to serve as a, as a bridge or as a support, or if you need something. So good. Okay. Thank you everybody for what you wrote in chat and for sharing. Any last thoughts here about this video or? All right. So let's go on to look at some helpful open-ended questions or some helpful open questions. So you can look at these. I won't read them all, but these are really good tips to use in MI, and you've probably heard of these things before, but with concerns, some things like, how has this stopped you from doing what you want to do in life? Or what do you think will happen if you don't make any changes? And that one can be very effective. It may or may not be as effective for vaccine conversations, but I think that question in general, like, what would happen in 5 years if you don't make any changes to your health? And then questions around possibilities. So this can help build motivation. What are the main reasons you see for making the change? So you're highlighting those flowers in the garden. You're highlighting the change talk. If you had a magic wand and you could make a change immediately right now, how might things be better for you? How might they be easier for you? Ability. So talking about their strengths, you're going to go back to your affirmations where what encourages you that you could make a change if you want to? What have you done in the past that shows your strength or your grit? So just anything around their ability, trying to really listen when they're talking to you so you can maybe jot down some things that are their strengths in the past, or maybe if someone's a parent or if someone is working a couple of jobs. I mean, those are all strengths that person is able to manage situations or things. And then intentions. I can see you're feeling stuck right now. What's going to have to change? And that's when, at least in my experience with MI, this is when you might have to be comfortable in the moment with silence here. So I can see you're feeling stuck at the moment. What's going to have to change? And you're probably not going to get an immediate answer. You might have to just sit for a moment. What do you think you might do? What would you be really willing to try? So these are all just great ways to kind of push the conversation forward, and good little tricks to have up your sleeve or in your MI toolbox. All right. Now we are going to do some group practice. So, and I want everyone to participate to the best of your willingness. So let's look at this first one. We're sitting with someone that says, I don't think the vaccine is for me. I know people who have been sick with COVID, but no one I know has died. I believe that if God can bring you to it, He can bring you through it. So let's just brainstorm a conversation here. What are some things how could we respond to this person? What's just an affirmation, a reflection, a open-ended question? What are some things what are some MI tools we would use?
You can post in the chat or you can unmute. So Victoria says, so you believe God will get you through this if you get it? Nice reflection. Brandy says, I'm hearing your faith is a great tool you use to cope.
Oh, yeah, great.
I'm hearing you say you have a lot of faith in God. Mhm.
Okay, good. Good reflections. Remember, we want a lot of reflections.
Mhm.
What's an open-ended question here? Or maybe how would you use EPE in this scenario?
So you've known people that have had COVID, but they've come through it. Is that correct?
Okay, so you're confirming, you're just following up with a question.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just confirming that you're understanding that. Okay.
Tammy is saying, how would you feel differently if someone you know had died from it? Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. Good. Yep. And because
Good
maybe that
open.
person, yeah, and that maybe they haven't thought about that, you know, might hit home, you know, when it's closer, it might really affect that person. Good. So one thought I had on EPE was, yeah, and I didn't really have a whole lot on EPE for this one. I mean, but you could definitely ask to provide, you know, would it be okay if I provided a little more information about hospitalizations for people who have not been vaccinated? Because, you know, even that might get people thinking, and I was going to bring this up later, but I'll just bring it up now. The finances, the financial pain in the hospital is, right? Like that could hit home to some people. So again, just having some facts. I did try to, I did some Google searching to see if there's an estimated cost of what it costs when people are hospitalized due to COVID. And it was a year old, the data, but it depended on if they were severe or not severe. But even basically the least amount that I could see from Money Magazine was about 70,000, 74,000 if they didn't have a severe COVID case. And granted, this was probably before vaccines. And we all know that, I mean, I have good insurance. I was in the hospital for 3 hours last fall for a kidney stone. I'm still paying for it. It was $4,000. So we all know just how expensive it can be, you know, depending on your deductible, or perhaps if you don't have insurance. Yeah, so again, that maybe is not the most credible article in the world, but I thought it was worth checking out. Thank you, Erin. Okay, it's not that it's not credible, it's just not the most current article. But sometimes that is a door that you might be able to use with MI, about just kind of exploring the healthcare cost. You know, what would it cost if you do have to be hospitalized?
Or it could be an open-ended question about, you know, so you have friends that got sick with COVID, but no one died. What would happen if you were to get sick by COVID? How do you think that would impact your life? And then they may talk about, well, I'd have to take time off and I'm not sure who would take care of my kids and blah, blah, blah. But just getting them to think about how it would impact their, you know, their daily life.
Yeah.
The costs, loss of work, all of that.
Right. The loss of work, how long it takes to recover for some people. Good. Okay. Thank you, Patty. All right, let's look at this other one. Yeah, I got vaccinated, even though I was on the fence about it. I don't think it's safe for my 8-year-old daughter, however, so I haven't gotten her vaccinated. Kids don't get that sick with COVID anyhow. Tell me what you've heard about children getting the vaccine. Great, Gloria, because then you're going to know what they know, right? You're going to hear a little, you're going to dig deeper. Love it. What else could we say here? Again, you can use any MI tool. This is sort of similar to Dr. Pran and Dottie, because it was okay for her mom to get vaccinated, but not her.
So how would you point out that discrepancy? Any thoughts? Would anyone like to unmute?
Gayla says, what would it take for you to get your daughter vaccinated?
Mhm.
Good.
And Victoria said, so you feel it is okay for your daughter not to get the vaccine and yet you got it. Mhm.
Mhm.
On the one hand, you got the vaccine, and on the other hand, your daughter, it's not safe for your daughter.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
you really hear the misinformation.
Yeah, yeah. And on this one, I went back to the state of Colorado, to CDPHE website, because just since day one, I've been very pleased with their FAQs on their website and how easy that website is to navigate. So maybe using elicit, provide elicit with this one, like, just providing some of the information that you can find from the website on that, like, would it be okay if we talked a little bit further about, after saying, what do you know about the vaccine for kids? And then digging in deeper. Would it be okay if I provided some information on that? And Gloria says, you were on the fence. What made you decide to go ahead and get the vaccine? Yeah, that's a good one. That's a gold nugget right there. Charisma says, we know how most children are major germ carriers. It could spread a lot faster from person to person. Yes, yes. They can't help it. They like their hands in their face, on their face. Okay, good, lovely. Those are great. All right, so just for the sake of time, I'm gonna go move on to the last one. Thank you, everyone. Let's just look at this last one. If you haven't participated yet, I would love for you to just throw any idea regarding MI in the chat. So here's the scenario. No, I'm not getting a booster shot. I had Omicron this winter, so I think I'm protected enough. What do we say to that? No, I'm not getting a booster shot. I had Omicron this winter, so I think I'm protected enough.
So Victoria said, obviously they think you may not be, which is why they are urging you to get a booster.
Great.
So how would you, but that's information. So Victoria and others, how would you actually present that?
I'm not sure, probably. 'Cause I could play the devil's advocate for a lot of this stuff. Because it's like, okay, it's like, okay, somebody convinced me. It's like, I'm gonna be one of the ones, I'm not vaccinated.
Mhm.
I'll share that with you all. I'm not. I don't believe in it. And I do talk to people. It's like, well, like on this one, it'd be like, well, if they want you to have a booster, why wouldn't you? I mean, you've already had the first one. Why wouldn't you go further in protecting yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. What is keeping you from? And then they'll say, well, I already got it. So don't I have some antibodies or don't I have some protection? So
You might, You
Yeah.
might, but in the research that I've seen is like it wears off. That's why they
That's,
want you to have the booster.
yeah. Yeah. So in using MI, the strategy might be that EPE. So, reflecting back, so you're not sure it, or you think that you have some protection for a while after getting COVID. Would you like to hear some of the information that we are aware of regarding that? And then if they say yes, then you share that, yeah, you do have some protection, but it does wear off. And that is why they are urging you to get a booster. What do you think about that? So kind of like how the provider talked about diabetes.
Right.
Thanks.
Well, if she could just cure diabetes, they'd be all
Yeah.
right.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yep, that's
The
true. That's a whole nother presentation. And then as Patty, if to follow up on what Patty just said, making sure at the end of the conversation that you just simply say like, thank you for spending this time with me to discuss this. And I just want you to know that I respect your decision, regardless of what you choose. This decision is yours to make. So just keeping that relationship there and keeping the door open. Remember one thing I'm seeing like once or twice in chat, like just make sure your reflection, if it's truly meant to be a reflection, it's not a question. So we want to say something, instead of checking in like earlier, I think, with the, if God can bring you to it, try to take out the word so that we just say your faith is strong, or you feel you have immunity built up since you've already had the virus. So remember, it's very difficult to not make it a question, and we don't want to. So a couple of things that are in chat. Do you normally get the flu shot every year? And just making a connection there about, so maybe on this one, adding in some data, if you have any information trying to provide EPE. This is what this is what the science says so far, and you can explain that. Again, some of this, I don't want you to feel like you need to become a scientist here, always staying within your role, but just exploring it, and as I said earlier, it's not your job to ensure that everyone gets vaccinated. But just to be able to hold space for that person and have some helpful conversations. All right, so before I let Patty take over, what other final things would you like to share or mention? Good, okay. And it sounds like, I didn't mean to not see this. Is it Francisca? Are you asking us if the antibodies can, or the vaccine can wear off?
Yes.
And you can just come. Yeah, so you're curious to know
Right.
that if the
I thought once you create antibodies, that those are like memory cells. So if you were to get sick, that your body would reproduce them.
right, and I have heard that and read that, yes. From what I read on CDC website and other websites, are that the vaccine over time, if you haven't had it for 6 months, your resistance to the virus gets lowered. So in so many words, you could, I compare it to the flu or several other vaccines where you'd have to get a booster shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not a medical professional, and I am not a vaccine specialist. Those are I'm just going off things I have read. that are from reliable websites. So yes, over time, our bodies, the vaccine essentially, is less effective.
All right, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amy. So we're going to move into a different section of the workshop today, and that is around misinformation. And many of the ideas that people have around vaccines and COVID is a result of what they see in social media or on TV or on websites. And so we're going to explore misinformation for a little bit. Now, the strategies that we're going to be talking about over the next several or 20 minutes really are more related to when you're sending out messages on social media, Facebook, or on your, let's say your agency's website. So it's more around the print or, online communication. So we've already talked about when you're having a conversation, that's when you use the MI. And now we're switching to other forms of communication like print, online, etc. So we're going to start by doing a game, playing a game, and I'm going to ask for your help. And we're not going to finish this. We won't have time, but Erin is going to put the link to this game. It's also in the slides that you'll get. So we really encourage you to go on your own and play this game. But the idea is for people to experience what it's like to be create your own misinformation campaign. So let's see here. So misinformation is designed to trick you. So why not walk a mile in the shoes of a manipulator to get to know their tactics from the inside? All right. Okay. So as a manipulator, your job is to maximize your likes and credibility by choosing the most manipulative options. See if you can beat other players' high score. But first, what's your name? Okay, yeah, we'll do Joel. Big books and I cannot lie. All right. So then it says, going viral is easier said than done. There's a reason why your crazy Uncle Bob isn't an influencer. Some tactics work better than others. Let's try it out. So now we're going to decide what to post on social media. So here's a post, social distancing. I'd rather be social distancing. Do we want to, if our purpose is to increase the number of likes and increase the number of followers, do you think this will do it? Should we post this on social media or look for the next one? So if you could just put on chat, post, don't post. Post.
Yep.
Post. All right, let's post this on. Oh no, that clearly wasn't the key to influencer fame. And I want fame. I want to be an influencer. You only got 4 likes and your credibility is an all-time low. Make sure it doesn't drop any further or you'll lose the game. Let's see what other people on social media are saying. Okay, my dog has gone missing. No, ignore this. Jeremy, no, keep scrolling. Fun fact of the day, the blue whale is the largest animal that ever lived in Earth's history. Let's reply, you are fake news. It's actually true. So distinguishing fact from fiction on social media can be hard. Aside from fact checking, you can spot dodgy content by checking whether it uses manipulation tactics like fear-mongering, fake experts, or conspiracy theories, which Miguel's post did not. All right. Oh, okay, so here's a post. Big pharma-owned company destroyed precious rainforest to fund its multiply toilet paper monopoly, profiting from Corona. All right, so search for posts about toilet paper's nature. All right, So my dad tells me that due to COVID panic stockpiling, toilet paper now accounts for 30% of deforestation. Check out more posts. What do you think? Yes to more, or have we seen enough? Yes. All right. The story is interesting, but let's not jump to conclusions. Should we look at more? Find more? Or enough already? I'm waiting to see something. Enough. Okay. All right. Now, everything on your news feed is about this toilet paper scandal. Congrats, you've just created yourself a filter bubble. A what bubble? A filter bubble is kind of like your own little world where like-minded people echo each other. It's based on what you like, share, and engage with online, and selectively shows you relevant information. All right. Did you also notice that the posts with the most likes all tap into negative emotions?
Hmm.
All right. Remember, outrage means engagement. Choose 3 words to show people what you really think about toilet paper versus nature. So we want 3 emotional words. I'll wait to see in the chat what you suggest. Do we want mild, potentially concerning, hugely concerning, alarming, or terrifying? What do you think?
I'm watching the chat.
What do you think? Potentially concerning? Remember, we want outrage. If we want lots of likes and lots of followers, terrifying.
Hey.
Yes. Yes. Let's do alarming and hugely concerning. All right. How about you post something with these words in it just to see what happens? Okay. Terrifying toilet paper shortage looming. Big Pharma's alarming rainforest behavior is to blame. All right. So then we get a bunch of likes. See up here, we got more likes, and people seem to think we're trustworthy. Check out the meters at the top. See, we have credibility. Yeah. All right. So we're not going to continue, but you can play this game and see how you maximize your number of likes and your followers. So the purpose of this game is to show how, basically what people do on social media every day. So in disinformation campaigns and misinformation campaigns, they're purposely using fear-mongering in order to get a reaction. They also are using emotions. Many create fake experts and are promoting conspiracy theories. But I just said disinformation and misinformation. So let's check out the differences. Oops. All right, so misinformation is really when someone just forwards a post, and they didn't check to make sure it was credible and verifiable and accurate and all of that. They just kind of shared because they thought it was interesting. And maybe they really did it out of an abundance of caution for their group. They want to protect, their loved ones, their friends. And so they feel like sharing this information does that. But they are perpetuating false information that might come from a disinformation campaign. So a disinformation campaign is when there is an explicit and specific intent to deceive. And that's when videos are manipulated, photos are manipulated, they're taken out of context in order to promote this narrative. So, and it's totally fictional. So disinformation truly is fake news because it's just created out of the blue. Misinformation really is just, it could be satire and parody. It could be accidental information. So we can help to reduce misinformation by being more critical users of information. For disinformation, we can use two different techniques. One is pre-bunking, and that is like the game that you just played or we played together. And that's where you help kind of vaccinate people against the techniques that are used by disinformation campaigners. So there are all these different games. There are lots of different games out there now where you're practicing how to create a disinformation campaign. And by knowing how it's done, you can then look at information that crosses through your feed or on web pages and be more critical about it and not share. So some of those claims are so crazy. They just, you got to wonder, why don't people just, know it's not true? But the reality is false claims are sticky, and it's because you see them over and over and over again. And there's this process called memory misattribution. And what it means is that when you see something over and over again, just because of the repetition, your brain starts to assume, well, it must be true because I keep hearing it. So what we have to do then to counter false information is to provide the accurate information as frequently as the misinformation. So let's explore that a little bit. All right, so we talked about pre-bunking, and that is that, that game as an example where people are very aware that they will be, they will be the recipients of disinformation campaigns through social media and websites, and that they need to be aware of those techniques. So one example is the Truth Initiative Against Tobacco. You've probably seen the ads on the TV. I see them in like Pandora and on social media. So Truth Initiative Against Tobacco is trying to equip youth against the tactics of the tobacco industry. So could you put in the chat box if you've seen the Truth Initiative ads anywhere, and what you think how do they try to equip young people against being preyed upon by the tobacco industry?
And I'll watch the chat for you, Patty. I have not. I'm super curious about this. Krista says yes.
Yeah. So Krista, do you mind unmuting or writing in the chat what you've seen?
A couple folks say no, that they haven't seen them.
Oh, on your daughter's Instagram. That's great. So basically the Truth Initiative tells young people about the tactics of the tobacco company, and the whole message is don't be preyed upon, or don't be foolish, they're using you. And so they're showing how, because of the agreement, and the tobacco industry had to open up all of their files and memos, and I mean they really detailed how they would specifically target everything, promotions, being at concerts. I mean, and so that's kind of the idea, is pre-bunking or preparing young people so that they have an armor against those messages that are kind of everywhere. Yeah. All right. So, oops. Okay. So the other technique is debunking. So when you see false information that's coming through in social media, websites, and your patients and your community is being, inundated with with false information. So what we know is that you can use a truth sandwich to make people aware. And so you provide the fact, and then you warn about the myth. And that's when you say, this organization or this person is saying this information and what tactics they're using. They use a false expert. They're taking content or data out of context, and then you restate the fact. So you don't want to say the myth or the misinformation multiple times, because remember that memory misattribution. If you keep saying the false statement, then you're kind of contributing to it. You're reinforcing it. Whereas you want to keep saying the truth or the fact. You say that multiple times. And so we need to get these messages out in our social media and our organizational social media platforms in order to combat the immense amount of false information that is coming in. So it's the fact, warn about the myth, tell them about the tactics being used, how they're being manipulated, and restate the fact. And then the last piece I want to mention, we only have a few more minutes, is oftentimes misinformation is spread just because people, I know I might read a title and then just kind of pass it on. But if you don't go into the information and really critically analyze if it is likely true or not, then we ourselves are contributing to the misinformation or the disinformation campaign by just passing it along. And so what's really important is that we help to halt the flow of misinformation by having emotional skepticism. So really, does this really make sense? Can I be sure that this is true before I send it out to my, all of my followers or all my friends and family? So here are a list of things to think about before you share. And we need to train other people to do the same. And that way, if we stop, then that means that false statement or that myth is not being spread to hundreds more people. So over time, we can slow down the flow of misinformation. There are a number of toolkits available on communication, both verbal communication as well as written communication for online and social media. So covering what Amy and I just reviewed. And so you can look these up, and they're wonderful toolkits. This communication handbook describes using motivational interviewing and vaccine conversations, and also describes the truth sandwich, debunking, pre-bunking, all these different strategies so that our organizations and us as individuals can contribute to decreasing the spread of misinformation, not just about COVID, but you name it. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. We have a few more minutes. All right.
Everyone's going to get the slides, correct? So you'll be sent the slides or be able to access them. And so some of those links are juicy. They look great for the strategies on that second to the last slide just a moment ago.
Yeah, I think we really need to teach our young people, who are probably more on social media than many of us, to be that emotional skeptics, really think before they send it on, because they're contributing towards the spread of falsehoods, just like everyone else, or maybe more so even.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if any of you have examples of how you've caught misinformation, on web pages or social media related to COVID or other things. Anyone?
I know personally, I've seen things and then gone to the source. You know, you click on the article and you really kind of weigh, is this a credible source? Have I heard of this news agency before? Who's behind it? You know, kind of before I, you know, start to believe like apple cider vinegar is the cure to all your ailments. Like,
But it's not.
No.
you know, or yeah, and definitely I've been the recipient of people like chatting you like, oh, you got to read this, and then be like, can we stop a minute and
Yeah.
really see if this is to be believed. But they are made to catch your attention, and a lot of these websites you'll go to and they're just ads, right? So it is the intention to get you there because that ups their profits. So
Absolutely.
yeah, or the websites where it tells you like a tiny little chunk of the story and then you have to click for more and click
Yeah.
for more. And you're like, I just want to know what happens. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's very clever.
Yeah. Disinformation campaigns are usually due to they're trying to make money, you know, so clickbait might increase their revenue, like YouTube. They really want to sow mistrust, you know, so it's more creating chaos. And it could also be for political gain. So, well, thank you all so much. Erin,
Thank
any
you.
final? And Amy?
I have a link to the evaluation in the chat. We'll make the recording and the slides available. And thanks so much for your time today. And feel free to
Thank
follow up with questions and explore the resources.
Thank you for the work that you are all doing and continue and have been doing. So thank you. Take care.